There's a lot of unknowns about the new canine respiratory disease that's been all over the news. But on this week's episode, I want to talk about things that we can do right now as dog owners to help give our dogs a fighting chance if they happen to catch it. Let's talk about it next. All right, let's get this week's episode going. Hey everybody, this is Jake from OnDog Training Academy. We're an online dog training company. We have an awesome course out right now called Welcome Home. It's really giving your dogs that needed boost and head start as you get them into your house and getting them comfortable. So check out ondogtrainingacademy.com for more information. I want to start this episode first by saying sorry that I haven't been around the last couple weeks. I've been having some computer issues, and I got this computer going good enough to hopefully record this. And, well, if you're hearing this, it did work. But record this, and I do have a new computer coming in the next couple weeks, which is going to be significantly better and hopefully be able to add to quality to the content and be able to talk to you guys a lot more often, just because there's times where this computer doesn't really want to function at all, and it's just been a problem. So, new computer coming. You guys should be able to hear me, hopefully some more. I also want to say, when we're getting into the topic today of the respiratory canine disease, or the canine respiratory disease that has been kind of all over the news, that I am not a vet. This is something that, this is more personal opinion. I have done a ton of reading on this, obviously for our own clients and stuff. I want to make sure I'm as knowledgeable as possible so that not only are we keeping the dogs safe that we have here, but we're also just making sure our clients don't have to worry and keeping them up to date, because this can be overwhelming. People see something like a disease that's spreading across the country. It's affecting dogs and it can be fatal, and people really start to panic. And obviously post 2020, it just hits a little bit different. So on this episode, I'm not going to go real deep into what the respiratory disease itself is, just because there are so many unknowns about it. And I have a feeling that when I put this video out, it could be outdated right away. They're coming out with new stuff. Some are saying doxycycline is helping with it. Some say that there's not a lot that's helping, and they're really starting to just figure out what this is. So I don't want to talk too much about what the disease itself is. I want to talk about what we can do as dog owners and pet owners in general. If you have a cat, bird, well, I don't think it's really affecting them. But regardless, if you have another animal that's not a dog, you should be doing this stuff anyways to really help them just fight off any illness, any disease. So that's what I want to focus mostly on. Now, I will say, I just want to I just want to kind of lead in here by just giving you some overview, kind of view of what the canine respiratory illness, like what are some symptoms and things like that. This is something that is contagious through dog-to-dog contact. It doesn't have to be necessarily direct contact. It can be from a dog being infected and drinking from the same water bowl, things like that. So we'll get into a little bit of what we can do to help minimize the exposure a little bit later in this episode. But the first thing is that if your dog is coughing, sneezing, has labored breathing, nose or eye discharge, more so than normal. Like I have dogs that have just normal eye crusties and things like that, less of a concern. But if it's really weepy, if it looks really bad, and there's some of these other things like the lethargy, decreased appetite. Look, if you have a lab and your lab starts to say, hey, I don't want to eat anymore, and the dog usually has a hard time not eating its food in one bite, obviously you need to take some action to that, right? So if your dog is showing any of those symptoms, it's really a good idea to contact your vet. Hopefully it's just something as simple as the kennel cough that just pushes through and the dog just kind of gets on with life. But in the low chance that it is this new canine respiratory disease, it's good to get ahead of it. From what I'm reading, the quicker you can get on it, the better, because it can be then they can start throwing meds at it and try to combat it. That being said, I want to talk about some precautions that you guys should be taking right now as dog people that are going to help minimize the risk. So one thing is to avoid high-risk situations with your dog, such as large boarding kennels, and that to me is it's tough. Like we do board and train stuff, and so it's really tough to say don't bring your dog to certain places. I don't want to alienate any company or business, but if you have a large kennel, it's obviously hard to control to a degree. Control what how these dogs are interacting with each other and whatever. If you have to bring your dog to a boarding kennel, make sure it's a boarding kennel that does require specific vaccinations, like a kennel cough, maybe the parainfluenza, the influenza type of vaccinations that are going to help at least minimize your dog getting sick in general. We always require a kennel cough vaccination, because even if it's just a regular kennel cough, and it can be just like a regular cold, when it gets into a boarding place or any place with dogs, and you're recycling dogs in and out at somewhat of a normal pace, it's hard to get rid of it. So I would definitely make sure, and even if, and we'll kind of talk about this in a little bit, but even if your dog kennel doesn't require it, it's good to go out and make sure your dog is fully vetted. Making sure your dog has that kennel cough vaccination, maybe the parainfluenza vaccinations and things like that, just to make sure they're staying healthy. Now, one thing, before we get more into the precautions, one thing I will stress here is making sure your dog is up to date with its vaccinations. Unfortunately, there's been a lot of data out there now that is saying vaccinated dogs, like fully vaccinated dogs, is at an all-time, not an all-time, but at a very low rate. Part of it could be because it's been really difficult at times to get an appointment to see the vet, so you just let things slip and whatever. But also since 2020 and the vaccination stuff with that, and I'm not going to get into that whole political, all that, and we're not going to talk about that. But because of that, people have been less willing to go above and beyond when it comes to vaccinations. If it's not a legal, like a mandated, like your rabies vaccination or something, some people are opting not to get these, and making sure. And this is the one thing I will say is these vaccinations that they are telling you to get for your dogs have been around for a long time, and they've been tested and they've been proven, and they keep your dog safe. Your dog shouldn't be getting, shouldn't be getting these diseases and stuff. That there's vaccinations that are very easy and very common that you should be getting. Your vets will require them, or say, here's your puppy pack of booster shot or shots and stuff. You need your canine distemper, different things like that. These are things your dog should hopefully not have to deal with by getting sick. And if you are someone who takes your dog to dog parks, doggy daycares, things like that, having a fully vetted dog is going to be a benefit to your dog. We want to make sure these guys stay safe. So definitely make sure they are fully vetted. Don't be afraid to get them vaccinated. These vaccinations are typically very, very safe. And just make sure you're doing that. But like I said, dog parks, dog daycare facilities, these are things you want to be very careful about. Again, for me, I'm looking for smaller groups if I'm doing dog daycare. If I'm doing boarding or anything, I typically try to look for either small group plays or personal water dishes, which can be tough, but it's something that I think is important, at least to me. And again, if you're taking your dog somewhere that has communal dog bowls and stuff, just make sure they're fully vaccinated and should be mostly okay. And then the last one it says here is just be careful at dog parks. Now, personally, for me, I do not take my dog to dog parks. I do not recommend clients take their dogs to dog parks. If you're listening to this, I don't recommend you take your dog to a dog park, just because of a host of reasons. Not, some including you don't know what kind of behavior the dogs that are going to be there are. Some people bring dogs to dog parks so that they can be socialized, learn how to be social, and that's when fights happen. You have people they put their dogs into the dog park and then they just basically go chat it up with somebody else or look at their phone or do whatever, and they're not even paying attention to the fact that their dog is mauling over everybody, knocking over other dogs, playing inappropriate, maybe freaking your dog out or hurting them. So I am very cautious about that. And on top of it, of course, now with the canine respiratory disease, just the fact that dog parks can be cesspools of just nastiness. People, unfortunately, even though dog parks will supply cleanup bags and everything else, dog parks are just gross when it comes to people not picking up after their dogs, allowing their dogs to pee all over like the front entrance, so you can't even walk through the front gates without smelling like pee. And then obviously if there's any parasites, anything like that, it's just a cesspool kind of. And I don't recommend people take their dogs there. I'd rather have you go to a daycare where maybe the dogs are vetted and a little safer. With that being said, some things you can do if you are taking your dog to a dog park is don't share dog bowls. Don't allow your dog to drink from the common water bowl if there is one at a dog park or anywhere. Don't let your dog drink from a common dog bowl. Bring their own water, bring their own toys, everything like that if you're doing boarding and stuff. And then, just check with your vet. Like if you need to, if you're not sure about vaccination stuff, check with your vet and make sure you are up to date. Now, what I really want to check or really want to talk about is, in my opinion, something that's more important. Now, we already know, or if you've been following this at all, and if you haven't, I'm just going to tell you, there are at-risk dogs, obviously, just like with people, right? So when COVID was an issue or whatever, is an issue, whatever, they're saying people who are compromised, right? The elderly people with lung or heart issues, people with breathing, issues to whatever capacity. It's the same thing with dogs, right? If your dog has underlying health issues, you need to be a little more cautious. Or if you have a dog who is a squished face dog that just naturally has more respiratory issues just in general. So your Frenchies, any bulldog breeds, boxers, things like that. If your dog has a hard time breathing just by a slight exercise, then you really need to be careful, because any sort of disease or anything that affects the lungs or affects breathing is going to affect those dogs more. Elderly dogs, dogs with lung or heart issues, all these are things we need to be careful about and just really make sure our dogs are safe. But with that, if you have a completely healthy dog and your dog really enjoys playing and stuff, and you're like, well, what can I do? You can make sure that you are feeding your dog whatever you need to make sure that they have the best immune system possible. If your dog has a high level immune system, it's going to help. Now, I'm not saying that's the cure to this canine disease. It's probably not, but it helps. Anytime a healthy person gets sick, it's easier for that healthy person typically to get over whatever the disease or illness is. So making sure your dog has antioxidants, vitamin E and zinc and things like that, making sure your dog's gut health is super important. Exercise, hugely important. You need to make sure your dog is at a good weight. So look at what you're feeding your dog, read the ingredients, make sure you're feeding them a quality food, but also exercise and keep them at a healthy weight. If your dog is overweight, that's going to lead to breathing issues, which of course, if they get sick, could be an issue with recovery, because something they have noticed, and I believe, don't quote me on this necessarily, but I believe one of the more deadly parts of this canine disease is from getting like a pneumonia type of thing. The dog gets pneumonia, that becomes a lot tougher. Well, pneumonia is a breathing thing. So let's make sure they're healthy and happy. Some things you can certainly look to. Sorry, I have my list here. I'm just making sure I'm going over everything for you guys. So things that'll help boost your dog's immune system. Vitamin E is an antioxidant that strengthens the immune system against viruses and bacteria. You can get vitamin E in fish, eggs, spinach. A lot of places that humans can get vitamin E, dogs can. You just gotta make sure it's good for them. Zinc also helps immune systems fight off invaders. Red meat, beef, and this is, when I say red meat, I think more of like raw. So if you're feeding kibble, I think the problem, unless they're putting zinc into your food, the problem is it's a very cooked down protein, and I think it's going to be less nutritious. But zinc can be an immune system fighter or helper as well. Red meat, beef, pork, lamb, fish, eggs, nuts, seeds provide additional zinc for dogs. So if you're feeding kibble, you could always look at giving them an egg or something like that. There's also like medicinal mushrooms that they can take. And there's a lot. I'm not going to get into the whole list of them. I would definitely do more research on that. Berries are awesome for antioxidants, as you guys probably know. They have other vitamins as well that support the immune system. Some of the best immune booster berries are blueberries, strawberries, and blackberries. We love giving our dog, Luda, blueberries. He thinks they're the best thing ever. He thinks they're treats. So blueberries is definitely something that's on our dog's regular diet. And then some other things like pumpkin. Pumpkin contains, and if you have, we're a little late on this now that it's December, but if you have any pumpkins from Halloween or if you can access pumpkins, we actually will cook our pumpkins in the oven almost like you would a squash, and then puree it up and bag it, and then give it to our dogs if they have stomach upsets, or if we feel like they need it. If they're working on getting dogs to lose weight, we'll give them a little pumpkin to help make them feel a little more full because of the fiber. But it also has vitamin A, vitamin C, E, iron, folate. It helps the immune system big time. And so it's there's a whole huge list of these. Obviously, like I said, carrots. Carrots are a dog-safe snack packed with antioxidants to regulate the immune function. Anything you can do to help your dog. I also like making sure my dog has really good gut health, so probiotics and prebiotics and stuff like that. There's a lot of different powders and things you can get. So if you do feed kibble and you're going to continue to feed kibble, that's fine. Just make sure you're supplementing anything that your dog could possibly be lacking, especially at this time. We want to make sure, like I said before, that these dogs are as healthy as possible. That's going to help fight off anything that could potentially come in, whether it's this new disease or it's kennel cough in general, parainfluenza. If it's anything like that, any illness your dog could potentially get, it just being healthier in general just fights it off. As you know from people, I am not the healthiest person. I do my best, and I typically recover fairly quickly after I get sick, but there are times where it hits me a little harder, and I feel like maybe if I'd take care of myself, maybe if I'd eat that extra bowl of oatmeal or that salad or something like that, that maybe it would help me out. Probably right. But the greatest thing about the dog's health is we are in full control of it. Obviously we're in full control of our own health, but it's a little bit tougher to say no to cookies. Well, we can tell our dogs basically just by not giving them the bad foods that, hey, you're going to eat healthy. So, guys, this is it. I'm keeping it short today. I wanted it just to be a quick little thing just to say that, look, don't panic. Don't go out and be like, I'm never boarding my dog anywhere and I'm canceling. I mean, I've read a lot of these things in a lot of different like Facebook groups and stuff where they're like, well, I'm going to not take my dog anywhere. We're going to isolate my dog to keep them safe. And I've canceled all of my classes that I was going to take with my dog. And I'm no longer doing daycare. I'm no longer whatever. And people kind of really jump big time into panicking. And I'm not saying you shouldn't be worried about this. What I'm saying is sometimes risk and reward is important. If your dog needs the training, get your dog trained. Do what you can. Now, this is a shameless plug, but this is one of the reasons we have this course, the Welcome Home course, is that we want people to be able to train their dogs even if they can't take their dog to class, whether it be because this disease gets too big or if it's because your dog can't handle going to classes. It's too much for them. This course is really good for that. So I want you to just continue to stay informed. Be careful about how much you listen to on the news. If you read articles, so this is what I've been doing. Read articles that are from vet universities or like very knowledgeable place like Cornell University, places like that are really testing and looking for answers. Sometimes, as we all know, the news is really good at creating fear. And that's not something we want you guys to be afraid of. We want you guys to be knowledgeable about what's going on, but also feel confident that your dog is going to be okay. And that's, media is really good at just making us worry a lot. So do your research. Look for very important or higher up vet places that are doing their research and doing their testing and see what they're saying about this. They're going to definitely help you out more than your typical, news outlets. So guys, that'll be it for this week. Hopefully this was helpful. Hopefully this gives you a little bit more guidance and confidence that your dog should be okay as long as we're taking the proper steps and making sure they're healthy and happy and vaccinated and continue to train them. I don't want to see your dog's training slip, because that's going to be worse, I think, in the end than this disease, is the amount of dogs who are lacking training because people have been afraid to take their dogs places. So guys, thank you so much for listening this week. And of course, hopefully, once my new computer comes, I will be able to be here every week again. And I really look forward to talking with you guys more. So thank you guys so much. And hopefully, we'll see you next week. Good dog.